All right, gun owner. Oop, came in a little early there. That's how excited I am about this show. It's going to be a great show. Gun Owners Radio, thank you for watching and listening. We make activism easy. Welcome, everybody.
All right.
Thank you for checking us out. Happy New Year. Check out our website. Go to gunownersradio.com. Follow us, sign up for our email, and tell your friends. Tell everybody about us so that they can experience the amazingness that is Gun Owners Radio.
If you don't already know, Gun Owners Radio does have a new home here at Discount Gun Mart. Discount Gun Mart has given us a space to make a permanent studio for Gun Owners Radio. As a way to say thanks, please check out Discount Gun Mart in San Diego on Marina Boulevard or over in Santee by Gillespie Field off the 67. You can also go to discountgunmart.com for more info.
Thank you, Alicia. Did you see our USCCA segment from last week did really well? There was a lot of interest in it.
Yes.
A lot of people wanted to hear about it, and we got a lot of positive feedback, got some additional questions. Big thanks to Gary Gibson. I thought he did a great job.
Gary's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite people.
It was really one thing I wanted to do and emphasize was the fact that we're completely independent. We don't really have a dog in the fight. And I do think, I mean, we like USCCA. We like all of them. In fact, I got to tell you, I think part of what I'm hoping happens is they stop fighting each other. Everybody's in this together, and we do a really good job in the gun community of making mountains out of molehills and tearing each other apart over things that, we shouldn't be tearing each other apart over. So I hope that everybody comes together and says, hey, you know what, there's some differences, but everybody's working towards the same goal generally. And, if there is somebody out there that's dishonest or whatever, we'll fish them out. But that's not what's going on in this case. There's just two economic competitors that are getting activists wrapped up in their drama, and I just don't think it's warranted. But I think the USCCA segment we did is excellent. There are more out there. Check it out if you haven't already. Big shout out to Isaac from Guns for Everyone. That's his channel. It's called Guns for Everyone. Check out his video and what he had to say about our video, not just USCCA, but see what he had to say about our video. So it's not just us talking about how great we are. It's Isaac saying, yeah, this did a good job, and we hopefully accomplished what we were trying to accomplish. So
Fantastic.
there you go.
Do we have a gun truth of the week this week?
We absolutely have a gun truth of the week. Now, this is where I look for a fact that has to do with gun ownership that you're not going to hear on media. You're not going to hear in a lot of interviews. You're not going to hear on CNN.com, or you're certainly not going to hear it on MSNBC. But it's going to arm you when you're at the water cooler, and you're talking to your coworkers or your friends or family or whatever. You're going to have a good gun truth that you can roll out that'll hopefully make people think. Here it is: 4/5 of felons, 4/5 of felons, that's almost all, agreed in a survey that a smart criminal, quote unquote, smart criminal is what the term they used, looks for unarmed victims. 3/5 agreed that they're more worried about an armed victim than running into a cop. And that was from Wright and Rossi. They did a paper, I've been talking about it for a couple weeks now, called Armed and Considered Dangerous. So they found out that, number one, the criminals are looking for unarmed victims. And number two, they're actually far more worried about running into an armed victim than they are running into a police officer, which I think is extremely empowering. So there's your gun truth of the week. Okay, yeah, we have questions. You have questions. We have answers. And I get a lot of the same questions over and over again. They email, they text, they ask, and I figure if somebody's asking, then more than one person is probably interested in hearing the answer. So we read them here on the air. First one is, I'm a San Diego member. I'm a San Diego County Gun Owners member. Do you have a sister organization in Riverside? This person's actually moving to Riverside County. Wanted to know, hey, I'm active with San Diego County Gun Owners. Am I going to be able to do similar in my new home in Riverside? The answer is yes. We have Inland Empire Gun Owners. Check it out. Join. Tell everybody you know. If you live in Riverside, San Bernardino, which is, of course, the Inland Empire, join Inland Empire Gun Owners. Not quite as big, not as active as San Diego, but they're getting there. San Diego is definitely the 900-pound gorilla. We also have Orange County Gun Owners in Orange County. So if you live in Orange County, become a member, and let's grow Orange County to be as big as San Diego or even bigger. And let's do the same in Inland Empire. I have a CCW. This is the next question. I have a CCW in Utah, but I live in California, which is like me. I actually live in California and have a Utah CCW. I have a California CCW. I have a Utah CCW.
Yes, yeah.
Do you? Do you have a Utah?
I actually have not taken the time to get Utah. I get everything that I need personally. I personally wouldn't get anything useful from Utah for my purpose. I have Arizona and I have Florida.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah.
So Florida gets you Florida, and a lot of people have Arizona or Utah. Used to be Nevada, but I got Utah.
Yep.
Here's their question. So they live in California and they have a Utah CCW. What about? Let's see. Am I exempt from school zones in Utah? What about other states like Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas? So this person lives in California. They're a California resident. They have a Utah CCW. They want to know, as they're traveling, are they exempt from the school zone law, which means you can't carry in school law or school zones. Are they exempt from that? Which is a very interesting question. Let me pull this up. So basically, if you live in California, you have a California CCW, you can go through school zones. You can't go on school property, but you can drive by into school zones if you have a CCW. That's completely and totally legal. But here's what's interesting. School zone exemption only valid in your state. I don't think a lot of people know that. CCW resident in California can go through California school zones. And if you have a Utah CCW, you can go through Utah school zones. But if you have a California CCW and you have a Utah CCW, you can't go through school zones in other states. So if you have your Utah, you can go through school zones in Utah. If you have your Arizona, you can go through school zones in Arizona. This is 922Q1A. It shall be unlawful for an individual knowingly to possess a firearm that is moved in or that otherwise affects interstate or foreign commerce at a place that the individual knows or has reasonable cause to believe is a school zone. Subparagraph A does not apply to the possession of firearms, only private property, not part of school grounds. If the individual possessing the firearm is licensed to do so by the state in which the school zone is located or a political subdivision of the state, and the law of the state or political subdivision requires that before an individual obtains his license, the law enforcement authorities of the state or political subdivision verify that the individual are qualified, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Okay, so but that's the important piece there is if the individual possessing the firearm is licensed to do so by the state in which the school zone is located. I don't think a lot of people know that. I think a lot of people think that if you have a CCW and another state honors it, you're good to go. But that's actually not the case. I also, by the way, I can't find a single example of somebody who was arrested or charged or convicted or anything for carrying concealed while driving through a school zone with a CCW from another state, honored by that state, but not a CCW within that state. So we're really talking about a pretty obscure, I don't see anybody getting prosecuted over this, but still follow the law. And this person asked officially, what is the law? So I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice, but I went ahead and read the actual law. Did you know that, Alicia?
I hadn't. No.
Probably hadn't even considered it.
No.
Doesn't even come up, right?
No.
Yeah. So, and you're a CCW instructor.
Correct.
I doubt that question's ever been asked, has it?
Not about outside of California, no. I do know that a lot of people do have, but once they learn that there is an issue, and when you see a school zone, what's important to note is it's not just on property. You actually take the property line of the school and go out 1,000 feet in every direction, and that's your school zone.
Right.
Correct.
So anyway, there you go. There's your answer.
Yep.
All right. That's everything you got to know for the Q's and A's this week.
All right, so next up, I'm excited. This is our legal segment, and note that neither Mike nor I are lawyers. We cannot give legal advice. And we're going to share with you, however, what everything that you need to know that as what's pertinent and new in the courts from the legislators about the different lawsuits that are in action. So we are not giving legal advice, but if you happen to need a lawyer and need legal advice, we have a guy that you can call. His name is John Dillon. He is a lawyer, and he's been helping more and more people to fight those GVROs, those gun violence restraining orders, in addition to all other things firearm related. If you know somebody that's had their self-defense rights taken away without due process, give John a call. His website is dillonlawgp.com, and his phone number is 760-642-7150.
Okay, first thing you got to know, this is the segment where, I don't do a particularly deep dive because I think that there is a significant portion of people out there who don't want a deep dive. They just want to know generally, hey, what's going on in the courtrooms, what's going on legislatively, what do I got to know? There are definitely a lot of great channels out there where they do very, very deep dives, but I just wanted to touch on it so you kind of know exactly what's going on. You know what you need to know, and generally what direction is going. Okay, so last year, right around this time, SB 2 went into effect. SB 2 expanded bans on where you could carry, even if you had a CCW. We filed a lawsuit, and we got an injunction. It is the Carolero case, and it's actually Carolero, a guy named Marco Carolero, Garrison Ham, who's a San Diego County Gun Owners Board member, Michael Schwartz, who's yours truly, Orange County Gun Owners, San Diego County Gun Owners, California Gun Rights Foundation, and Firearms Policy Coalition. Those are the actual plaintiffs in this case, and of course, Rob Monta from California is the other dude. So here's what happened. There was an injunction, an immediate injunction saying, hey, this expansion on the quote-unquote sensitive areas, which is really just a gun ban. That's all that is. It's a fancy word for gun ban. Sensitive areas is a fancy word for a gun ban. They pretty much banned it in everywhere outside of your home. The injunction got rid of that. The injunction made it to where you could carry everywhere you already could carry. The expansion of the gun ban pretty much had gone away with one exception. Airport property. Used to be that you could carry on airport property, but not in the sensitive areas. But that was actually never a part of the injunction, unfortunately.
Do we know why? I'm just curious. I have a personal question. I've always been curious.
No, we actually, I think it just got missed. I think it just got missed when they were going through and saying, all right, we need to deal with this, 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 and this. I think it just got missed, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Well, what's interesting? There's 2 court challenges against SB2.
Yeah.
Neither of them included airports. They both left it off.
Which leads, above my pay grade then.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not quite.
I thought if anybody knew.
It definitely wasn't, yeah. And they're both, by the way, they're in front of the same judges. The other one is May. Let's see. Yeah, May versus... it's actually Reno May, who's on YouTube, and then of course Anthony Miranda is the second on the other lawsuit. Anthony Miranda is the what's his name? Armed scholar.
Yeah.
And then Gary Brennan, who's a wonderful guy here down in San Diego, and a couple other folks. That is exact same lawsuit. It's a different lawsuit, but they're in front of the exact same judges. So that's what's going on. Anyway, so now you have this entire court case. But then the way this whole thing works, and I want to really kind of explain it so that folks can easily understand it. So then you kind of have this side quest of, where they say, all right, well, we have this injunction, and now we have to have a series of court cases involving this injunction. They said, hey, you got the injunction. That's the first. And then they said, well, we want to appeal the injunction. And we're not even dealing with the court case yet. This is just the injunction. So they said, all right, we're gonna appeal the injunction, and the injunction actually broadened how many sensitive areas California has. Not to the extent that SB 2 tried to, but they added some of the sensitive areas back in. And if you want to see where those sensitive areas are, check out our CCW guide. It's updated. Go to stcgo.org/CCW, and you can actually see exactly where you can and can't carry generally. Now, the big one was the vampire rule, meaning that each company or each private property had to give you expressed consent. They had to have it written on a government with a government
DOJ
sign,
approved sign.
DOJ approved sign that said, "Hey, you can carry here." That's gone. That doesn't exist. But some of the other ones, like some of the other
Arenas,
yeah,
parks,
stuff like
playgrounds, ball fields.
that. Yeah, it's but check it out. Go to STCGO library, stcgo.org/CCW. Check it out, and you'll see the expansion. So then they said, all right, well, we want an en banc on just that. And again, we haven't even gotten to the lawsuit yet. This is still just the injunction. And what just happened is they denied an en banc. They denied a full panel to review the injunction in the Ninth Circuit. So they basically said, nope, we're not going to do it. Just get to the lawsuit. Forget you got to live with the injunction, or you got to live with the restrictions that were put in place. Now, that's bad news. We were hoping to win, but I think now it's probably time to just power forward and get the lawsuit done with. But I wanted to bring your attention. There was a dissent to this decision. Judge Van Dyke, Vandyke. Check out the decision and read, especially the dissent by Van Dyke. He was very crystal clear about his feelings on this, and they were very supportive of the Second Amendment. He basically said, look, there really isn't any kind of there's no law that shows this ever existed as a tradition. That the Ninth Circuit, that the state of California showed some laws, but there really isn't a tradition where they ban entire sections, let alone every section of public property, every place outside of your home. This is clearly against Bruin. This is clearly against the Rahimi case, and he was he did a really, really good job of saying that this was the wrong decision. It should have gone to an en banc. The en banc should have ruled that these sensitive areas, this expansion of the ban should have been struck down. So please check it out. Read it. It's really well written. I'll just read you a little bit here. By ignoring the why and the how, the panel ran afoul of the Supreme Court's warnings not to overgeneralize when drawing a historical analogy. 3 justices have explained that the court's decision in Bruin and Rahimi do not license lower courts to abstract to such high levels of generality. A court must be careful not to read a principle at such a high level of generality that waters down the right. And that was a direct quote right out of Rahimi. He really, really gave him the business. So check it out. Okay, so that's what's going on with the SB2 case. There was another case I wanted to talk about, bring to your attention. We have a similar case here in California. California blocked the right for adults who are 18, 19, and 20 to own firearms. And I wanted to talk about it because there is a similar case there was a decision actually a few months ago, Rocky Mountain versus Colorado is what it is, and I wanted to read you a little bit about it. It's the age requirement challenge. Actually came out in November, but I wanted to kind of point out a couple of things here. The panel lifted a preliminary injunction blocking the law on November 5th, saying that Colorado's age limit is a condition or qualification on the commercial sale of firearms that falls outside of the scope of the Second Amendment. So they're saying the Second Amendment doesn't protect adults who are 18, 19, and 20. In 2023, the state amended Colorado statute, et cetera, to generally prohibit individuals under 21 from purchasing firearms. Rocky Mountain gun owners and 2 Coloradians sued Governor Jared Polis, alleging that the provision violated the Second Amendment right to keep bear arms. The U.S. District Court for the District of Colorado issued a preliminary injunction blocking the restriction while the case proceeded. The court said the individual plaintiffs would likely prevail under the Second Amendment framework established by Bruin. Under Bruin, if the plain text of the Second Amendment covers the conduct at issue, then Colorado must demonstrate that it is that its restriction is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, according to the district court. Okay, so that was just an article, just kind of a summary, all right? And I wanted to talk about how the court, who said, hey, yeah, you absolutely can deny an 18, 19, or 20-year-old adult, you can deny them their Second Amendment rights, because it's kind of important to understand their misunderstanding. And this is from the decision. Third, this is a piece of it, but third, we reject the notion that the minimum age for purchasing a firearm should automatically mirror the minimum voting age of the U.S. Constitution. By its plain text, the Constitution does not establish a one-age-fits-all standard for all rights. Equally misguided is the belief that the age at which most states currently set the age of majority, the point at which one is no longer considered a minor, is the only appropriate minimum firearm purchase age. Indeed, at the founding, most states set the age of majority at 21. So you can already see they're using the, text tradition against us, the history text tradition against us, by saying that, hey, back when the Second Amendment was written, 21-year-olds were considered the age of majority, not 18-year-olds. Quote, under English common law, individuals under the legal age of majority, 21, were entirely subsumed under the authority of their parents, usually their fathers or guardian. This concept followed to the colonies. Quote, those between the ages of 18 and 20, and indeed all under the age of 21, were considered minors or infants from the time of the nation's founding up through the latter half of the 20th century. So again, they're establishing, hey, this was a tradition. This was a tradition, just like the Bruin says. This is further exemplified by one early American dictionary, which defined minor as the following. Now, this is an early Webster's dictionary from the early 1800s, and it says, a person of either sex, underage, one who is under the authority of his parents or guardians, or who is not permitted by law to make contracts and manage his own property. By the laws of Great Britain and the United States, persons are minors till they are 21 years of age. Noah Webster, an American Dictionary of the English Language, 1828, likewise, age was defined as the period when a person is enabled by law to do certain acts for himself, or when he ceases to be controlled by parents or guardians in the United States, both males. So they went on to talk about how that basically, so first they tried to do the tradition, right? Traditionally, we've restricted people under the age of 21. Even though we're calling them adults now, and they have rights afforded to every adult, the tradition is that they didn't. And then they went on to say that, hey, you know what? Folks under 21, they're not fully developed. They're not fully developed. Therefore, they shouldn't be. It should be allowed to restrict their ability to defend themselves.
Why do we let underdeveloped people go to war?
Well, I hear you, and I think that what's happening here is, there has to be. This is turning into a broader issue. When is somebody truly an adult? If at 18 we can decide that they can sign a contract and go fight for the country, but they can't purchase a pistol to defend themselves, and it's turning into a much broader issue. And I think it's going to start to really reflect on, like, hey, sometimes when a 16-year-old goes to court, they get treated like an adult. Sometimes when a 21-year-old tries to, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I think that we're right on the leading edge of a series of conversations and laws and lawsuits that are really going to start to define when is an adult and what exactly does that mean. Now, this was not a good decision for our case, but it's also a different district, so it doesn't particularly matter. But what I wanted to do was give you a preview and show you, hey, this is why these lawsuits are not that simple. You have people on the other side who are against your gun rights, who are using Bruin against you. It's not as simple as, well, gee, there's no history of tradition. Well, this person's making the case. This judge is making the case that there is a tradition. There is a history of restricting 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Now, you and I both know that, hey, they weren't considered the age of majority back then, but I wanted to show you exactly what's going on. Okay. So that's 18 and 20-year-olds in Colorado. The next one is the Hearing Protection Act. I think this is good news. I think this is really good news. Have you heard of this yet, Alicia?
I didn't until I kind of previewed this when I got the document for today. Yeah.
Press release. Congressman Ben Cline reintroduces the Hearing Protection Act. This happened on the 15th, so it was just about 4 days ago. Today, Congressman Ben Cline from Virginia reintroduced the Hearing Protection Act, the HPA. This legislation reduces the overly burdensome barriers required to purchase a firearm suppressor to ease access for law-abiding citizens simply trying to obtain the hearing protection they need. Quote, Americans who enjoy hunting and target shooting should be able to do so safely and legally without facing burdensome government regulations, said Representative Cline. The Hearing Protection Act will reclassify suppressors, making it easier for law-abiding gun owners to protect their hearing while enjoying recreational activities. It's time to ensure that our Second Amendment rights are upheld, allowing responsible citizens to enjoy their freedoms without unnecessary obstacles. He's got a lot of support on this. In theory, people who are our friends run Congress, they run the Senate, they run the White House starting tomorrow. This should pass easily. And I think it's important that the way he's talking about it is that it's a health issue. You know, your hearing is health. And as you and I know, suppressors are not silencers. So it's not like it makes the gun completely silent, but it certainly does help. I mean, how many old hunters do you know with hearing aids?
All of them.
All of them,
I think
right?
a better question is which old hunter does not have hearing aids. And
exactly.
that right there is a hunter that was just a show boy on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be good news. It's just ridiculous. They don't really have. I mean, this came out a couple years ago, and they started talking about it, and it just isn't a good. It's just, hey, we're anti-gun. You know, the people that are arguing against it, it's just, hey, we just hate guns. We don't like guns. We don't like gun owners. You guys are all horrible people. There isn't really a good case that they're making against silencers, suppressors. You know, this whole idea that, like, well, we'll just never be able to find, if somebody shoots a gun, we'll never be able to find them. And come on, it's ridiculous. Grow up. Stop being a child. All right.
Tell me you've never shot a gun with a suppressor.
Yeah, without telling me
you've never shot
right?
a gun with a suppressor. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, it definitely helps, but it's you can't. You know, maybe I've shot a subsonic 22 without hearing protection, but anything bigger than that, I'm still wearing hearing protection.
Right.
It's just better. It's not, it's not completely and totally perfect. It's just better.
Right.
And hunters, particularly, are you talking about somebody that goes out into the woods, they fire one shot, if they're any good.
Right.
Hopefully they only fire one shot, but they can't wear hearing protection when they're out there. They got to hear twigs breaking and,
Right.
So that's really, really, truly who it's helping. It's helping everybody, but, the hunters that are going deaf because anti-gunners are bigots, screw them. All right, that's all you need to know this week.
All right. That's our legal and legislative segment.
Awesome. Okay, our next segment, we have a really, really cool interview. You've heard a lot of us, or you've heard us talk a lot about Red, White, and Badass Brew. They make coffee. They make some of the best coffee I've ever had. They're here local in Southern California. They're right here in San Diego. And their owner is very pro-Second Amendment and just happens to be a member of San Diego County Gun Owners. This segment is brought to you by, we're going to switch this up. This segment's brought to you by Red, White, and Badass Brew. And we're going to talk to their owner, Dustin, here in just a minute. But while we're doing that, check them out online, rwbbcoffee.com, rwbbcoffee.com. And if you use GOR, you get 15% off. And they have all kinds of really great coffee that you can buy, have shipped to your home. And I got to tell you, I wasn't a big coffee guy before I tried their coffee. I love it. It is so tasty. It's wonderful. And I'm so happy to have Dustin here. Dustin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Red, White, and Badass Brew.
That's it, man. In the flesh.
In the flesh. So tell us about the name. How did you come up with Red, White, and Badass Brew?
Well, it was originally named Basic Badass Coffee, or Basic Badass Coffee Company, or something like that, because I like pumpkin spice. And then Badass Coffee of Hawaii sent me a cease and desist letter, And at first I was like, you know what? I don't think so. I don't think you can go after me like that. And then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that's close.
Yeah.
And I didn't particularly love the name. I just love coffee, and so my guys call me Basic Bitch. And so I just come up with Basic Badass.
Yeah.
And so I started doing some little segments and skits online. And I thought about it, went back to the paper and started writing down names. And Red, White, and Badass Brew came up, and I was like, that's
This
the
is it.
name. That is the name that represents me, the people I love,
Yeah.
the country I love, and the people I want buying my coffee.
And how'd you come up with coffee? What were you doing that you said, you know what? Damn it, I got to sell coffee. What
Well, it was
the
actually
story?
coffee saved my life.
Wow. Talk about that.
So I was in the worst spot of my life. I had a construction business, doing multi-million-dollar construction business. I had a partner in it, and it went south real fast. I was on the road to become a millionaire, and I was $700,000 in debt.
Jeez.
In just a matter of weeks. And then lawsuits started coming in, and my house was attached to the construction debt that we had. We had a line of credit, and this was in 2020. Into 2020, beginning 2021, and it just spiraled way out of control.
It seems like that's the way for construction. It's like feast or famine. Like it seems like construction guys are either driving around in Lamborghinis or, living in a box.
But we were doing well, very, very well. But we had some inner turmoil that we could not resolve, me and my partner. And so it really just went downhill real quick. And some decisions that were made that I was not aware of, and money being moved to places that shouldn't have been moved. And by the time I caught wind of it, it was too late. It was way too late. And just something I couldn't recover from.
So where did coffee come in on this?
So in 2021, series of events, my oldest daughter tried to commit suicide. My oldest son decided to chase girls and drugs, and with a 4.3 GPA. And so I was kind of at the end of my rope, man. And so I wrote 5 letters to 5 friends of mine and went and visited one of them. And I told him, like, man, I'm done. At the end of the conversation, it was a normal conversation. And I just told him, man, I love you, dude. Nice knowing you, but I love you, man. He's just like, what in the hell are you talking about? And just told him I couldn't get a break in life. And so we just went through a series of steps. And he's just like, what's one thing that you love? One thing, no matter how big, how small. I have 4 kids, an awesome dog. I have a lot of life to look forward to. And I said, I just love my coffee, man. In the morning, I wake up, I drink my coffee, and then I go about my day, whatever that looks like. And it's usually pretty dark. He's like, great, let's focus on that, man. Every day, just wake up, enjoy that badass coffee, and make it to the next cup. Just make it to the next cup. Help me tackle a couple problems. Then I realized that these problems are just temporary. These are not permanent. I almost made a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
And so, and then Red, White, Badass Brew was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense, my friend. I'm so
So-
sorry you had to go through that, but wow, holy cow! Look at how you've come out of it so successfully.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. It's not quitting. And I encourage everybody not to quit and reach out. And that's kind of the harder part, right? Because suicides is pretty prevalent these days. And we're not 22 veteran suicides a day anymore. We're almost like 34, 36.
So let's talk a little bit about that. You are a veteran.
I am, yeah.
Talk about a little bit about what you do for
I was a U.S. Navy. Flew drones for Special Forces. And I got medically retired in 2013 after 13 years of service.
Wow.
And so life transitions and speed bumps are not unusual in my life.
Well, what do you think? So I had heard it was 22, and now you're saying that that's actually increased 22 per day.
Yeah.
What do you, in your assessment, knowing veterans, being a veteran, this is something that you've gone through yourself and something you're very passionate about. What is it? What if I never served, I was never in the military. A lot of people weren't or aren't, and how would you explain it to somebody? Why is a veteran more susceptible? Why are there so many suicidal veterans?
Well, because when you leave the military service, you're pretty much your whole life, right? You're leaving everything that you stood up for, the military uniform. So from Friday, it's your last day in the military. Monday, you're like, what am I doing? You're no longer donning that uniform. You're no longer in the locker room with your buddies. no longer doing the job that you love to do. You leave all of that. You also lose your drive and your purpose. You no longer have a mission. So you're losing a lot of identity when you leave the military, and you have to recreate that identity. And a lot of people just don't know how. And you lose structure. Think about one day, your day is pretty structured. You wake up, you know you have to be there at muster at 0700, and you're getting off at 1700, but 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. And that is your day. And throughout the day, you know when to go to medical, you know when to go dental. You have everything kind of lined out for you. Your training pipeline, you know exactly what you're going to be doing. To leaving, now you're all on your own. You have no structure, no system, and you lose all that camaraderie back in the military. You're no longer going eating luncheon with your friends. You're no longer getting that that kind of almost therapy, I would say. We don't realize it, but when you get out, it's kind of like therapy, man. You hanging out with the guys and the gals, it's therapeutic. It really is.
It feels like you've lost purpose. You had this enormous purpose. You had this mission, like you said.
Correct.
You were a part of the military, and you guys were doing extremely important things, and you were surrounded by guys that supported you. Yeah. And then one day you're just alone.
Just one day you're alone, and you have to recreate that structure outside. And then usually, if you're not prepared for that kind of transition, and like financially, it's going to have a huge mental toll on you. You're going to be like, wow, I can't afford the things I used to. The lifestyle, you're going to have to change a little bit. Yeah. Unless you prepare for that transition. If you do that, you really need to prepare 18 to 24 months in advance to really be squared away on that transition.
Wow.
And then you lose that identity, really. You're losing your identity. Now you're going to have to go from combat boots to a boardroom suit somehow. And about 20% of the people who leave the military have never done a resume, have never made a resume. They don't know where to even look. And I was on a panel one time, and the lady's like, "Oh, well, just become an expert in writing resumes." And I was thinking to myself, as a business owner, I'm like, "Wow, that's a terrible idea." You know how long it takes to be an expert to write a resume? Right? Yeah. That's like the longest road to employment. And I was like, no, hey, hire somebody to do the job. Don't become the expert in it, because you don't want to do that. You want to get a job.
There's no like transit. I thought there was some kind of transitional, like, hey, go to a week of classes before you.
It's called TAPS.
TAPS?
TAPS.
God, that's like the worst name. You know what I mean? Isn't TAPS what they play? It's at like a military funeral?
Yeah.
That's the worst name I could think. Yeah. Okay, I think mission number one, let's try to change the name of that from TAPS.
They might have changed it, I don't know. But it's also governed by our government. Like Congress is actually the oversight for this program.
Transitional Assistance Program.
Yep, So to make changes in this program, it's super difficult. You have to go through Congress. And so...
Even the name, it's going to take a congressional... All right, well, let's move on.
Yeah.
So in TAPS, when you're transitioning... Is it just not enough? I mean, do they do things could they improve it, or like
There's always room for improvement.
Sure.
So you're just so bombarded with so much information.
Yeah.
You just don't know really what to start. I can't remember, but man, I left with a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
You're not going home and sitting down and cracking a beer and reading this stuff. You just not.
I would imagine you're just not in the mind frame either. You know?
No, you're excited. You're at that final stage of leaving, because I think TAPS is like 60 days before you leave active duty. I think that's when you go to TAPS. So 60 days before you leave active duty to go and now join the civilian life, that's not enough time. You are already way behind the 8 ball of doing anything meaningful and getting a job. So check this out. When I transitioned, when I got medically retired, I thought I was going to be like, oh, man, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get that government job. It's going to be so easy. They're just going to open doors for me.
Yeah.
I was so dead wrong. I got out, and there was nobody waiting to open a door for me. There was nobody sitting there saying, hey, here's these jobs you qualify for. I probably put 60, 70 resumes with 0 interviews.
Yeah.
0. And I was in trouble. I was in financial trouble. I was in my confidence went from like high up here, well, not really high, but high as it could be at the point, to super low. Yeah. I gained I was 195 pounds when I left, and within a year, I was 250 pounds. I was eating my way through my problem.
It is. You hear that a lot, and it's kind of a hard truth that if you're a veteran looking for a job, nobody cares that you're a veteran unless they care that you're a veteran. You know what I mean? Unless it's like someone has some kind of personal connection or whatever, or maybe you had some kind of specialized information or some kind of specialized training that they're looking for. I've had the thought that they need to stop selling military service with that idea. Like, well, gee, you're going to be a veteran. Everyone's going to hire you, and you're going to, whatever. We need to probably tamp that down a little bit.
Oh, 110%. Think about this. You go into the military as a culinary specialist, a cook, or a tank driver. I mean, being a cook, there's a lot more things you could probably do with that than you can a tank driver. What are you going to do in the civilian sector just on that job alone?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
There is no tanks in the civilian sector, right? So you can't.
I would like to change that, but currently there are no tanks.
I would too.
So what's the most? So you got involved, but what's the most effective thing that occurred to you? What's the most effective change in your mindset? In your frame of mind. Like, if you could just tell one person one thing, maybe it's someone who knows a veteran or knows someone that's suicidal, knows someone that's at risk or something like that. If you just give them like just one little piece, like, man, what really helped me the most was this. What would it be?
Wow, that's so hard to pinpoint. So one thing, if you know somebody who is suicidal, be there for them, and don't be judgment. Don't have judgment. Don't cast judgment. Just listen, and be their battle buddy. Find out some programs, because what goes on is they sit you in front of a computer and say, fill out all this shit. If you're suicidal and you're having some mental health issues, the last thing you're going to do is sit there in front of a computer and fill out a whole bunch of things that you don't know where it's going. So help them out, be a battle buddy, sit with them, help them fill them out. Case in point, I had a buddy who came to me who was suicidal, and I sent him a whole bunch of links. And he's like, yeah, I'll get to it. So I just checked up, and I was like, man, this guy ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
So what I did is I started filling it out for him. I have all his information. So I started doing it for him. And then he started getting help.
Good.
Because now he's just like, okay, well, it took that little bit. It took me, 5-10 minutes?
When they're in a dark place, that's too hard.
It is.
They need someone to do the legwork for them.
Well, they're clouded. Their judgment is clouded. Right. They're just trying to live.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing, like minute by minute, hour by hour, just trying to live. In these little road bumps, look at a computer, talking about their problems on a computer with not a live person, it seems pretty dark. It seems pretty, lifeless.
Probably doesn't seem like there's a point. Probably seems pointless.
And they're going to say, who cares? Yeah. I'm a veteran. Plus ego. We need to, break a couple barriers down. We need to stop the mentality of us going to get help is a weakness. I think it's completely opposite. If we go get help, we're going to be stronger in the end.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because that makes us more resilient. That's going to bring us. That's going to have tools in your toolbox. So when stuff in life does go wrong, you're able to go pull back on it. You're able to pull those out and use them time and time again, because life is just exactly that, man. We're going to have things that go wrong all the time.
Now, is there a particular organization that you like or participate in, or what's?
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Wounded Warrior Project. I love them. They help me out. Oh, good. Major. STEP, Support the Enlisted Project here locally in San Diego. Okay. Awesome. And then Operation Homefront.
Operation Homefront. Okay, so Wounded Warrior, STEP.
Yeah, STEP.
And Operation Homefront.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Now let's circle back. Mm-hmm. Now, who should go buy Red, White, and Badass Brew coffee?
Oh, man, the American-loving patriots out there that want to keep our country free.
What's your best selling?
Oh, Whiskey Business, man.
Whiskey Business.
Yeah, that's my family favorite.
Yeah, that one is...
No booze in it. It just has a very similar taste palette. Is that the way to put it?
Yeah, so it has just a little bit of vanilla, caramel, and whiskey flavor in it.
Look at me
So-
being fancy saying taste palette, Alicia.
Bougie
Do you hear
coffee.
that?
Do you still have the decaf one?
No, Sleepy Joe.
That was-
No.
Sleepy
I
Joe.
thought that I bought it just because the packaging was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had Joe Biden's face on it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I came out with it, when in 2021. And it was just a joke, man, and people loved it. And the decaf was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't drink decaf, but it was good.
I wasn't a coffee drinker. I really liked your coffee. I had it at we had a tabletop somewhere. I think it was the first time I met you. It was at Core.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it was the first time I met you there. And we both had booths, and I tried Whiskey Business. And I was never a big coffee guy. I just wasn't a coffee guy. Even though everybody in my family just loved coffee. And I loved that. It was really good. And then about a year ago I became a coffee guy. And I just hit. You know what I mean? I was just I was tired. I was actually coming in to do a show, and I was particularly tired. I had a long day or whatever. And I was like, gosh, I got to be on for the show. And I downed some coffee, and I'm like, okay, I get it. All of a sudden it was clear to me. So, all right, what's your website, Dustin?
rwbbcoffee.com.
RWBB Coffee.
Yep, .com.
And .com. And you want to do GOR to get 15% off.
Correct.
And great, man.
And there's one last thing. So we are actually opening up a drive-through in La Mesa.
Nice.
So that's coming soon.
We should have led with that. That's awesome. When's that? What's the time frame on that?
I'm hoping, God permits, into this month.
Nice.
Into this month before Valentine's Day.
Very, very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that. When that happens, let's talk about it.
Where in La Mesa, though?
Off of Jackson Drive, Honey Baked, right across the street from Honey Baked, next to, kind of down the street from Hobby Lobby.
Okay.
So if you go to Hobby Lobby there off of Grove Center Road,
Yeah.
we're just right down the road from it.
That's cool. Well, let's when that happens, let us know. Give us plenty of time so we can promote and get a line around the block.
Let's do it.
Cool, man.
That's it.
All right, Dustin. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks,
So
Mike.
that's Red, White, and Badass Brew. Check them out. GOR for a discount. Thank you, Dustin, for coming on and talking to us, and thank you for everything you do. So nice hearing your story, and I'm so glad that you're successful and doing great, man, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
All right, dude. Take care. All right, next we're gonna have we actually have another guest. Before we do another guest, we're going to transition here. We're gonna do a curtain call with Alicia. Alicia Curtin. She is an instructor, and she is a wonderful shooter, and she is an absolute peach of a person who I just adore in every single way. Every week we find a defensive gun use story, and Alicia tells us the ins and outs. She's Alicia Curtin, so we call it Curtain Call. This week is it's a man goes from protector to criminal. A veteran's arrested for defending his family with a gun, and Alicia is going to talk to us about it. What's going on, Alicia? What happened?
This one's pretty upsetting in a lot of ways. So here in the state of California, we don't have a duty retreat. We also don't have standing ground. What we do have is we have a Castle Doctrine.
Yep.
So this story here, actually the story itself, if you want, you can find it on YouTube. It actually is a story where our defender, and also happens to be the man who was charged, and the USCCA did go and defend him. So he is also going to be featured on the USCCA website, but you can also find him on YouTube. Just search for "Man Goes from Protector to Criminal." It'll come right up. If you want to read, if you want to watch it, it actually is a pretty lengthy. It's about a 17, 18-minute long video, but it's actually well worth watching. It's really horrifying to think. This could have been me. This could be you. I mean, this could be any of us. So what this is we have a veteran who served his 20 years in the military, right? And I don't recall if he gave his specific MOS as to what he did, but I get the sense that he had something where he was armed himself.
He did something with guns.
He kind of made some comment in the story that kind of made me feel that he did. I don't recall if he actually stated what his MOS was. Mm-hmm. Slightly irrelevant, however. But he has a family. He is married. He has some adult children in the home, and he has some younger minor children in the home as well. So what happens is it's him, his wife. His name is John. His wife is Bobby Joe, I believe. He just calls her BJ in the video.
Okay.
And he has an adult daughter named Jessica, and then he has some younger boys as well. He doesn't give their names or ages. So what happens is this daughter, Jessica, has a new boyfriend. And Dad finds out this new boyfriend has a lengthy criminal history, is not such a good guy. This guy shows up at the home. They appear drunk. He at some point finds out that he is also high in Suboxone. He's just not someone that you really want around your minor children or your adult daughter or your family in general, right? And so the dad says, you know what, this guy's got to go. And I guess the husband and wife had also planned to go out, and then we're hoping for the older daughter to be watching the minor children. Definitely didn't want this guy in the home as well for that. So Dad says, you got to go. Right away, girlfriend, adult daughter, not girlfriend, but adult daughter, along with this new boyfriend, they don't like that. They don't want to hear that. They both get combative with the parents.
Right. Romeo and Juliet.
That's it. So it turns into a bit of a fist fight. And so the boyfriend is swinging. He does make contact and hits the mom. He is swinging. Furniture is kind of getting moved. Tables are getting flipped. It turns into a brawl.
The boyfriend and the parents are in a fist fight.
That's it.
God, what a different world.
And the girlfriend is defending the boyfriend. She's on his side.
I can't even fathom that. I mean,
I know.
There's more than one set of parents out there that didn't like me dating their daughter. I can't even fathom.
I know.
Back being a teenager, throwing fists at parents. Like, what is wrong with you?
I know.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yep. So it also sounds as though he was drunk when he arrived at the house, which also, clouded thinking right there as well.
The kid was drunk.
The boyfriend. So they get into this brawl, this fight. The older daughter, which is the girlfriend to this loser guy, and her loser boyfriend make their way upstairs to a bedroom. They decide to kind of retreat and to isolate, but the entire time that they are making their way through the house, going up the stairs and going to the bedroom, this boyfriend is, lots of colorful cursive words are thrown out. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to shoot you. All these things, these threats, right? I'm going to, every colorful way you can say it. So he's clearly shown physical contact. He's not afraid to throw punches. His intent is there. He is unhappy. Now he's making threats, right? Boyfriend, as they retreat up to the bedroom. Dad knows that there is a firearm in that upstairs portion. This guy has just made threats. Apparently the older daughter knows where the firearm is. Dad now has a concern. She is clearly on boyfriend's side. She knows where the guns are. That's a concern that we have. Dad, and not only did boyfriend and daughter retreat up to this bedroom, they happen to have also taken the mom's and dad's cell phones with them, so they could not call 911. They make no mention of a landline, so I don't know. Maybe they didn't have a house phone, but they mentioned that the cell phones were taken away. When they retreated, they had taken the phones. So the wife decides to go to a neighbor's to attempt to call 911. Dad knows that he also has his minor children in the home. He, in that moment, makes a decision to get his carry gun, which sounds like it was stored somewhere else in the home, and he gets that just in case. And he makes it very clear. He says several times in the story that he had it just at a low ready just in case. But you know anything about low ready, you've got different ways that we can have these firearms. The whole intent behind a low ready is that you have it out should you need it, but it is not pointed or aimed in any direction to where anybody would be harmed or hurt. So he makes it very clear and states several times he had it at low ready. The boyfriend was upstairs and was in this bedroom. But the dad had it just in case. And this is his own home, right? He wasn't outside. He was within his own home.
Right.
Law enforcement shows up. There was no further interaction between the boyfriend or anybody else. Shots were not taken, was never pointed at a person. Police immediately bring the dad out of the home. They have him back out, and they immediately put him in cuffs. Boyfriend is basically treated as a victim. Dad is arrested. He's charged with four cases of wanton endangerment.
What state is this?
Ooh, that's a great question. Give me a hot second.
That's okay. Keep going. Keep going.
So
he was
4
charged.
charges.
He was charged. Go ahead. What are the 4 charges?
Wanton endangerment and 2 charges of aggravated assault.
Aggravated assault.
Correct.
For
Having a firearm in his own home.
Against a kid that was throwing punches.
Correct.
Drunk.
And already making threats, terroristic threats, if you will, right? That I am going to kill you. I will kill you all. I will kill your whole family.
And so this guy's being defended right now.
The case is done.
The case is done.
So the case is done. Now, I will tell you what was great. One thing that he does state is that one thing that was a great benefit is he did call up. He used his one phone call. He called the USCCA to get his attorney.
Yeah.
And that attorney made it very clear, you know what, there is no bond or bail that this judge can give you that we will not cover. You're getting out today. And he was out that same day. And his particular case, it worked. It worked. What happened in his case is the prosecution went forward with charges. They went forward and they went to a grand jury. And if you are not familiar with how a grand jury works, that's where the prosecution shows their side.
Yeah.
Right? The prosecution goes to this grand jury, and the grand jury has to decide, first of all, was there a crime committed? Not only that, but is there sufficient evidence to where we should look further into this, and that there's a great chance that it could have been who you suspect it was, right? Is there enough evidence to even go forward with the next phase and to go to trial? Grand jury said no.
Oh, really?
Yep.
The grand jury said no, so it ended it right then and there.
Right then and there.
Good
Never
for
went
them.
full trial. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's scary. It's aggravating. Now this was in the time frame. This was before GVROs were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was before really red flags were big. So this is a scary situation already on its own. But the times that we're in now, GVROs and red flags
It's
are a
tough.
concern.
Yeah, big concern. It's tough to even say what did he do wrong? Like what should he have done differently? I mean, I don't even know if there's any lessons to learn here other than, hey, even if you do everything right, you still might get caught.
Right. He was well within. I mean, the only thing. I mean, if we really sit and pick this apart, and again, this is total, armchair quarterbacking. The only thing I could think of that he could have done that would have been better, that could have prevented charges, was if he got his boys and they left out of the house.
Just left.
That would be, honestly, that's the only thing I could think of that he could have done that could have prevented this. But we don't.
I guess, but gosh, that's got its own. That's its own.
I know.
You know what I mean? Its
I
own
know.
set of
I know.
struggles and possibilities.
Correct.
Jeez. All right. Well, there you go.
So with the Castle Doctrine, the Castle Doctrine doesn't change the law. What it does is it gives us a greater presumption of innocence to where within our castle, right, our home, our vehicle, and our place of employment, we have an expectation of safety. And if we get into a use of force, we have a greater presumption of innocence.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, even Castle Doctrine's a little watered down in that situation because he was invited in.
The boyfriend?
Yeah, the boyfriend didn't break in.
No, he didn't. He didn't. But he was asked to leave.
Castle Doctrine is a little bit stronger when someone breaks into your
Correct.
house. You
Correct.
know where, he didn't break in. But
Correct.
Okay, what else do we need to know on that one?
So get insurance, and I don't care who you go with.
Yeah,
I don't care. I mean, of course,
But
I have my own preference, but get somebody.
But that's
You never know.
the
Even when
lesson.
you do everything right.
Right. That's the
you
lesson.
don't know how. That's it.
Sometimes
don't
the
know.
lesson is even when you do everything right, you could still get caught up in this
That's it.
in this crap.
We have
so.
no control over what others do. You never know what motives somebody else could have. I have an own personal experience with the courts. You never know what somebody else's motives are.
Right.
And you never know when you do everything right. Things can go. Things can still be life changing.
All right, that's our curtain call. Thank
it.
you, Alicia. That's awesome. Okay, well, we've been watching for the last week or plus, and I actually talked about the fires last week. And we've been watching all kinds of horrific footage. We've been seeing reporting. This is one of those situations up in L.A. where the news is showing a natural disaster, and as bad as it looks, it's
worse.
even worse. Where usually they make things look worse than they are, or they try to get more viewers and they try to, sensationalize it, where I got to tell you, it appears that these LA fires are even worse than they look. And even putting the politics aside, just looking at the actual fire, actually what happened to people, what happened to homeowners, what happens to people in their cars during these horrific fires, I think it's really important to be prepared. So we have Michael from Cargo here to talk about some things you can do to prepare in case there is a massive fire. Cargo, cases and rugged gear outfitters in El Cajon. Go to cargostores.com to check them out. Or if you want to see them in person, go to 423 Broadway in El Cajon. If you need to protect your gear while you're on the go, look no further. Cargo has the perfect case for you. From trusted American brands like Pelican, SKB, Seahorse, Underwater Kinetics, and S3 to top-tier imports like Canadian-made Nanook and Italian-crafted HPRC. they've got it all. With over 2,000 models to choose from, you'll find a case for everything, whether it's firearms, camera gear, drones, watches, or whatever else you need to keep safe. And here's the best part. Cargo keeps hundreds of cases in stock and ready to go. Plus, they offer custom foam inserts, connectivity solutions, and even branded cases to make it uniquely yours. So if you need to protect it and you want to customize it, check out Cargo. They are your place. Use GOR for 10% off their website and mention Gun Owners Radio or STCGO at the store for a discount. Great products, great prices, and uncommonly good service, cases, and rugged gear outfitters. Michael, how you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
So, have you been paying attention to the news coverage of what's going on with LA?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how can you not, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember back in 2007, we had our fires here that were pretty major. And so, yeah, it's just very reminiscent of all that, right? And what could you have done or should you have done or should you be doing? You know, those are all those, you know, things that you can't always, you know, I mean, you can prepare for them, but just most people don't really think about it until it's, you know, time. And so there's that.
And it's horrible. And it's hard for me or maybe most people to kind of imagine, well, gee, how does a fire just overtake a house so quickly? I mean, if you've ever been out camping and you've struggled to build a fire, it just doesn't make sense that a fire swoops in, takes people off guard. Next thing you know, they're in big, big trouble. But that's the fact. That really, truly is what happens.
Right,
I had,
right.
I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I lost my home when I was a kid. When I was 8, my house burned down. I will tell you, nothing like what the people in LA are going through, right? If you think about it, yes, my stuff was traumatic, right? We lost pets, we lost everything. You know, I was clothed by the Red Cross. I looked like I was at a little house on the prairie wearing dresses in the 80s. But if you imagine, not only was it traumatic, like what I experienced, now you have, your neighborhoods around you, you go to stores. I mean, there's nothing on the shelves. It's just devastation, and you're not the only one. It's you and it's everybody.
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Well, I mean, entire neighborhoods were completely devastated.
Yeah.
You're seeing people who absolutely felt betrayed by elected officials.
Yep.
People who probably were supportive of these elected officials 6 months ago now absolutely feel betrayed by them. You really, truly have to take control of your own safety and understand that you are your own first responder. What are top 3? Let's do this. Let's talk about the top 3 things that people can do to be prepared for a fire here in San Diego or anywhere.
Right. So, I mean, at the tail end of it is probably being prepared to evacuate and get your bug out bag basically, or take advantage of your get home bag if you already have that in your car, and just all the precautions in terms of what are your important documents, your pets, medications, and I think primarily having water available to take with you and some of those things, right? And so just so like you said, so you're not dependent on the Red Cross or any more than you have to, right? And so that's one end of it, and then at home. Regardless, which I find astounding. I mean, I was in the service. I was a fireman there, and for me, it was just I've got fire extinguishers everywhere, right? By every exit, by every door. So, and knowing how to use them and practicing that alone. If it's your own fire, right? I mean, in this case, this was very dependent on all the conditions, right? We had low humidity, very high winds, and once that gets started and takes off, that's very hard to mitigate, right? And so, but even in the home, whether it's a kitchen fire and just understanding the differences of the type of fire extinguishers, pretty much all of them now are, ABC, so they can handle, solids and liquids and electrical fires, right? And that's really what, those will take care of. But there's just even other things, nuances about those that people don't think about. They're full of this powder, and if, I think you're supposed to shake them periodically just to, jog loose the the extinguishing material so that you can put the fire out, you know.
And check them to make
And
sure
they
they're
do have an
still-
expiration date.
Yeah.
Right, check them, and I mean, primarily just make sure that the pressure's in there, right? And you're supposed to change them out every year and so forth.
What do you,
And
do you have
so-
like a rule? I mean, I'm kind of surprised that a lot of people I talk to, they have like they may have a fire extinguisher in their kitchen, and that's the extent of it. Where I don't know. I think you should have at least one on each floor. You should have one in every bedroom. You know, I don't know. What do you have a rule of thumb, or how do you know how many fire extinguishers you should have?
Right. Well, I think obviously depending on your house and your layout and so forth, but the rule of thumb is that it needs to be by an entry or an exit of
Okay.
the building, because the first thing you should do is try to get out.
Yeah.
Right. And so once you're out, now you can decide to go back in and then have it there available. You don't want it across the room to have to, fight your way through fire to get to it. Right. And so you just kind of have to come up with a plan of where's the potential, where would the fire potentially start, and so it's hard to anticipate all the time, but nevertheless, like I say, I don't think you can have too many,
Yeah, really.
unless you lose track of.
They're
that
cheap. What are they? $30-$40 these days?
yeah.
Not even that.
Not even that.
Right.
Not even that.
Yeah. And the main difference between them, on the cheap ones, normally they have the plastic head on them. Those you can't recharge. The ones that have the metal ones, those you can recharge over and over. And so there's just very basic understandings of having them. But I mean,
I have one on my Jeep. I just realized I got to look at it and make sure. I haven't checked
Yep.
that one in a while. And
Yep.
That
those
would
of
come
you-
with the Jeep?
No, those of you who know anything about my Jeep, you know that it's highly recommended. It's warranted that I have a fire extinguisher on my Jeep.
Okay.
So I've never had to use it.
good.
Cross your whatever, knock on wood, cross your fingers, dot your I's, whatever. But I just realized I have one on my Jeep. I have one on the roll bar of the Jeep, and I haven't checked that thing in years. It's probably about time. Probably about time I checked that one.
Yeah, like you said, it's cheap enough.
So what are some things? I mean, I think cargo, this is a perfect opportunity for people to evaluate their situation and probably solve a lot of their gaps in their plan by taking a visit to cargo. What are some things that cargo can provide for, preparing for, to have to evacuate or something like that? Or what kind of preparedness things can they find at cargo?
Pretty much anything you need for a bug out bag, short of, actual food or water. But we have, a lot of products for water treatment, filtration, things like that, portable ones. First aid kits we have, so there's lots of that. But you can, we can help you guys, anyone come in, and we can help you with everything from a tactical bag, attach MOLLE pouches that you can now get yourself organized with, again, first aid kits, and whether you need a knife with that, or you need, there's just a whole slew of different things. The main thing, obviously, whether it's shelter, things like that, ponchos, and depending on the weather, obviously, those are all the considerations that you have to keep in mind for our climate. And everybody's situation is different, right? So. We got numerous products that would certainly go with that. Gas masks. I mean, we do carry a good line of those now, and so
What are gas masks good for? What can you actually do? Is there? There's kind of I think there's a misconception on some things that you can't do, or that you can do with gas masks that you really can't. But talk about like if you're the average person out there and you have no experience, no knowledge around gas masks, what would a person use a gas mask for?
Well, there are definitely different type of filters for them, and so there's a range of applications for that. But it's everything from dust, particulates. Some that will certainly help with in a smoky situation, but they're not going to provide oxygen. So those are limitations there. And to the furthest extreme, you get an MBC type filter, which is nuclear, biological, and chemical. So if you happen to be in an area that's near either a nuclear plant, or you have other situations like that, then you may want that, or a chemical spill and things, noxious gases, and it would certainly help with that. At least gets you through that.
Wow, interesting. Now, you and I have talked before. You take independence and preparation very seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you want to go into that, but you actually you do. How much do you want to go into that? Do you want to talk about that and some of the things that you do as a kind of a hobby slash?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you have, as someone who's prepared for a natural disaster?
Right. I mean, my first, or our family's first go-to is in case of an emergency and short of having to evacuate is basically being able to bug in, right, and hunker down.
Yeah.
And so you want the ability to survive any length of time, without outside resources. So obviously, stocking up on some food and clearly water, I think, is more important than anything else in that regard. But go through the exercise, flip your switch on your house and try to go through that for 2-3 days and see, how does that work out, right? And you will quickly learn what are where are your shortcomings, and trying to get that resolved. Now, we have a garden and we have some, fruit trees that we're trying, growing and trying to, supply our own food for that and not be, again, as dependent. But, when the emergency starts, you don't want to be one of those people that have to run to the grocery store to go get, basic essentials, right? And so always having some amount and a safety stock and pretty much everything so you can rotate it in and out, and that's certainly what it does. For us personally, we raise some chickens so that we have, eggs. I've been into aquaponics, and so
that's where I wanted to go. Tell people what are aquaponics? What
So
exactly is that?
I mean, it's in terms of food sources, right? One of them is going to be, your protein, right? And short of having enough land for cattle or anything else, you could certainly grow rabbits if you're, okay eating that. So I grow, we grow our own tilapia at home.
Wow.
And so, that's, we've got, it's a closed loop system. Aquaponics is basically, it's like hydroponics, but rather than having to infuse the system with nutrients to feed the plants in the water system, right? So it's a garden, and the fish waste is basically what the nutrients come from to make the plants grow.
What kind of, can you eat the plants, or the plants just for the fish?
You can do either way, but I mean, you can grow vegetables there.
Oh,
Absolutely.
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
yeah, no,
And I mean, you don't even have to. And this, I'm sure a lot of people, most people aren't going to get as involved as you are. It's kind of a lifestyle and a hobby for you, which is awesome. But I don't think people realize just how easy it is to be prepared to hunker down for, 3 weeks.
Right.
Preparing to be in your house for 3 weeks, not that hard. It doesn't take, you don't have to have a bomb shelter.
Right.
And I've heard people say it's the 3 Bs: bullets, beans, and Band-Aids.
Okay.
Those,
Yeah.
bullets
It's a
meaning
place to start.
Yeah, really. Bullets meaning self-defense.
Sure.
Beans just being food in general, and then Band-Aids, of course, being first aid. But it's just not that hard. I mean, you can make a trip to Costco and Home Depot and pretty easily end up being prepared. And it doesn't, it'll take up a little bit of space in your garage. It's not like you need, an entire extra room or whatever to be prepared. But man, I remember when late March in 2020 when COVID hit, how many people were prepared? I remember a few years before that when all the electricity in Southern California went off for a couple days. How many people were prepared for that? Now, fortunately, that wasn't as serious as, these fires up in LA. But man, we're right in the middle of, earthquake central, it's, you don't have to create a scenario of like, some kind of government, or invasion or whatever. I mean, these natural disasters, happen pretty regularly in Southern California. It's very, very possible. And it's just not that hard to be prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for natural disasters of any sort, whatever it is, whether it's a tsunami, which again, depending what part of the town you live in, you may or may not be affected, and earthquakes, I think we're all vulnerable to that, and maybe not even directly in our own buildings and structures, but if there's road damages, I mean, if you've driven out to El Centro or whatever, there's enough bridges between here and there that if any of that collapsed, if it were to cut off, trucks coming into town, at best, I think on average, a city has about 3 days supply for that population. That's in the stores. Okay, so once that's gone, if you don't have it already, it's over. And if you have to, weigh it out for, a week or two, then that may be pretty, challenging for some people. But
the 8 would a major earthquake, the 8 would absolutely collapse. I mean, like you're talking about the bridges. There's one major bridge I can think of,
Yep.
right by the immigration checkpoint. That would, it wouldn't take a whole lot for that thing to be wiped out, and you're done. Like there's nothing. You're not connected to Arizona if that thing goes down.
Right. And so, and for that same purpose, right? I mean, if the power goes out, right now the ATMs don't work, right? Now you can't get cash, so having some cash available is one of the. You can't get gas at the gas stations; they won't pump, and so there's all these different elements that are certainly going to be, a showstopper for so many people, and I think about that every time I'm driving around. I look at my gas tank, and I'd like to keep it full, especially before a weekend, maybe, and things of that nature. Just keeping it full is better than always running on empty, right?
I know, gosh.
Having a couple cans of gas with some stabilizer in it, just in case. Rotate that out periodically. I mean, there's just very basic things that you can do that may save you on someday, right?
I think you've really truly become an adult. You've really truly gained wisdom in life, and have kind of made that leap from boy to child. When you stop telling yourself, I'll just stop for gas in the morning. When you finally go, you know what? I'm stopping for gas tonight. I'm filling up tonight. Right. I'm not going to get gas tomorrow morning.
I'm feeling very cold out right now.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, our forecast right now, we're going to be getting some wind out here, right? And so we're kind of subject to not an unusual situation, and so it's coming, right? And so, it doesn't mean there's going to be fires coming with it. But if it does happen, then that's when it's going to get ugly, and might as well have your tank full of gas so that you can head out, right, and be ready. And again, like with your pets. In fact, this morning I heard something on the radio that somebody else's show I thought it was kind of interesting, and they were talking about their pets, right? If you have dogs, is that the importance of having your dog crate trained. Being able that they are willingly going in a crate, whether they like it or not. And especially if you have to depend on a stranger to have to go rescue your dog. I mean, if they already don't want to go in there, they're not going to go in for another person. So I just thought that was an interesting concept, and having a leash available and all those things just ready to go so that, even they are, taken care of.
There you go. All right, we're gonna do a roundtable discussion. I want you to stick around, and we're gonna ask Sam we're gonna try to stump my nephew.
Yep.
And then we're gonna have a roundtable about a couple of things, and I want you to stick around and participate in the discussion. You got time to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Before we end this segment, though, what's your favorite thing in your shop? What's one thing? It doesn't have to be necessarily a prepper thing or something on the retail side, whatever. What's like one thing you're just like, man, this is cool. I love this little thing or big thing or whatever it is.
Oh man,
put you on the spot. It's like it's like picking a favorite child.
Right. It is. I mean, again, everything that's there. It's something that I've researched and found to be of value. So it just runs the gamut right there, right? I mean, our freeze dryers from Harvest Right are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Just again, our selection of cases that I mean, even for that, for a evacuation, right? Being able to have things in a case that you can just grab and go, you're ready. You're ready, and so. Just hard to say.
What knives do you carry again? You carry.
We carry Gerber, so that's a bigger line that we carry. We carry a couple other brands. Mora is another one. They're pretty popular. They kind of made their name in the dive industry, so they are well known for their rust proofness and ability to hold the blade. The sharpness. And a few others, but
cool.
Primarily those.
Well, check them out. Cargo. What's your address again, Michael?
We're at 423 Broadway in El Cajon.
Which is the old location for?
The El Cajon Gun Exchange.
There you go.
People still come in looking for them periodically, but that's not a problem.
And check out cargostores.com or go see them again on 423 Broadway in El Cajon. And use GOR for 10% off their website or mention Gun Owners Radio or SDCGO at their store. So cool. Michael, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to, let's talk about a couple of things, and then we're going to try to stump my nephew. Inauguration Day. We're having our it's a joint event. San Diego County Gun Owners having our joint event tomorrow on Inauguration Day. This is both good news and bad news. It's sold out. So everybody's who's gonna celebrate with us has already purchased their tickets. It's right here in San Diego. We're gonna watch the inauguration live at 9 a.m. So it's gonna be a nice early morning for everybody. So get there early and enjoy. If you miss tickets, I'm so sorry, but check them out on TV and celebrate the inauguration with us. Armed Citizen Rules of Engagement with Masad Ayub, March 8 and 9. Sign up today. Here's what one student said: you should all definitely join this class. I took this class 11 years ago, and it forms the backbone of how I look at crime, self-defense, and firearms ownership. Ready to level up your skills? Well, sign up at gunownersradio.com. Just click the link for Mastering Self-Defense. Live fire sold out, but there is still the 2-day lecture, and we have some space available, so sign up today. Next, Intro to Modern Off-Grid Comms class is happening January 25th. If you've ever bought a Baofeng radio and still aren't quite sure how to use it, this class is perfect for you. You'll learn the skills, practice the skills, and walk away with a fully programmed Baofeng radio, ready to keep you connected when it matters most. And with recent events like we were just talking about, like the LA fires, you know how quickly things can go from normal to chaos. So upgrading your communication skills could make all the difference in staying safe and informed during an emergency. Spots are limited, so head to the website now and sign up. That's gunownersradio.com. Sign up today. All right, everybody, now it's everybody's favorite, Stump My Nephew. We found out years ago that my nephew Sam the gunman, is extremely good at gun trivia. So if you send us a trivia question and we use it on the air, we'll send you a hat or a shirt. And if you stump my nephew, we'll give you something cool. We'll give you some kind of really cool special prize. But good luck. He's almost completely and totally unstumpable. This segment is sponsored by Seal One. Go to seal1.com. Their website, again, is seal1.com. Seal One makes gun ownership easier and smell better. The live fire class with Masad Ayub is sold out, but here's your chance to win big. A 4-day MAG 40 class with Maz himself. That's both live fire and classroom training, an incredible opportunity. Here's how to enter. Go to seal1.com, spend $25 or more, and boom, you're in. It's that simple. Don't wait. Stock up now and secure your chance to train with the best. Truly the best. Truly legendary. Seal One's at SHOT Show, by the way. That's this week. If you're going, stop by booth 71054 and check out Seal One. Seal One, thank you so much for sponsoring the segment. You guys are awesome. I got to tell you, all of us could use a little help in, all of us gun owners. We could probably all use a little bit help at making gun ownership easier and smell better. I think we could all benefit from that. Why not? Okay, Sam, how you doing, bud? How do you smell today? Smelling good?
I hope so.
Good. Good answer. I like the confidence. You doing good? Everything good?
Yep. It just snowed again here for the third time in the span of about a month.
Wow.
I bet you guys wish you could get some of that right about now, but it is what it is.
Especially a couple hours north of us. Could you imagine if they just dumped a couple inches of snow all over LA? It'd be wonderful. All right. You ready to answer a question, Sam? I'm going to read it this time.
I think
sure. Let's have it.
I think you got this.
I like this one. This is a good one. I don't know if he's going to. You think he'll get it?
He's got it.
All right, he's got it. Francine from Valley Center wants to know, what was the first semi-auto shotgun? What was the first semi-auto shotgun?
Francine from Valley Center. What was the first semi-auto shotgun? Thanks very much for writing in, Francine. It's a tough one.
And I think, of course, she's talking about commercially.
Yeah, commercially mass produced.
Well, my inclination is to say, It must have been a John Browning design, but I don't think the Auto 5 was marketed as such until a few decades later. So I don't say anything yet. Let me think through it.
I didn't say a word. Old poker face over there isn't isn't as isn't as quiet about it, but keep going.
I think he was working for Winchester at the time, but I don't know the model number, so I'm just gonna hedge and say it. This is tough. I want to say the Browning Auto 5, but I know that's wrong because it wasn't. I don't think it was called that yet, but that's my answer.
So hilarious. Okay, here's the answer. The Browning Auto 5 was the first semi-automatic shotgun to be mass-produced. It was designed by some guy named John Browning. I'm not sure who that is or if he ever went on to do anything significant after that. But in 1898, it was actually patented in 1900. It had a distinctive high rear end, which earned it the nickname. Do you know what the nickname was before we give that away?
I'm going to guess something like humpback.
That was the nickname. The nickname was the humpback. Exactly right.
Well, it's descriptive. If you've ever seen an Auto 5, the upper rear part of the receiver has this very distinctive squared off appearance. And if you've ever shot one, then you probably fell in love with it because they're really smooth shooting shotguns. For a design that's over a century old, without much changed internally, he really knocked it out of the park with that one. I had an opportunity a few years ago to shoot an Auto 5 Sweet 16 gauge, owned by a friend of mine, and I was very, very impressed. It shot nicer than some other semi-auto shotguns I've fired that were much newer.
I wonder when did they stop manufacturing them? I wonder, like, how old was your buddies? Had to have been a classic. It had to have been, and I don't think it was 100 years old, but how old do you think? You have any idea when they stopped producing them?
Well, as far as I'm aware, you can still get new production Auto 5s. Browning is owned by Atman, and they still produce sporting arms.
Oh, cool.
The Sweet 16, I don't know if that's still in production because 16 gauge ammunition is very, very scarce. Yeah. But as far as I'm aware, you can still get them in 12 gauge.
All right. Well, Francine, up in Valley Center, you're going to have to wake up a whole lot earlier in the morning and try a whole lot harder to get one over my nephew, Sam the Gunman. Great job, Sam. Francine, let us know what size shirt you want, or if you want a hat or whatever you want. Just let us know and we'll send it to you. But you don't get the special prize because you didn't stump him. Almost, though. Man, that was close. Okay. Next segment, Straight Shooter. This is our Straight Shooter segment, sponsored by straightshooter.ac. Check them out. If you have a heater or air conditioner, call them 619-922-3937 or go to straightshooter.ac. They'll fix your air conditioner or more likely your heater this time of year. So check it out. So, no bull, just straight shooting on today's hottest gun and political topics. It's time for the Straight Shooter segment where we have a roundtable discussion, talk about some local, some political, some gun things. First up is I found out that San Marcos City Council member Ed Musgrove is running for State Senate, District 40. And I got to tell you guys, I couldn't believe it. This is exactly what we were designed to do, and more accurately, what we were designed to prevent. He actually, when he ran a few years ago for City Council, he submitted a questionnaire, and it was pretty clear to us that he was not our friend. We did not endorse him. I would have loved to have blocked his initial election when he was running for San Marcos City Council, but we just didn't have a candidate running against him that was strong enough, so he got in. And now, as they do, he wants to move up to higher office, and State Senate is where you really start making some of the worst decisions about guns that people can make in their political life. I actually wrote an article on this. You can see this. We'll probably send this out this week so that you can reread, because back in November of 2019, I actually wrote an article on Ed. And he basically, the name of the article is "What's the Biggest Danger to Our Second Amendment?" So the article goes, let me just touch on a couple of things. It's election season, and San Diego County gun owners received our candidate questionnaire back from San Marcos City Council candidate Ed Musgrove. In a word, it was horrible. Normally, I don't publish information from questionnaires. If their response includes a questionable statement or two, I look at it as an opportunity to educate the candidate. I contact the candidate and make sure they fully understood the question we asked. I look at it as obviously an opportunity to educate primarily. The anti-gun laws in California are extremely complicated, and candidates for public office cannot know every nuance of every issue. We understand that and are happy to be a resource to those who want to make good, informed decisions. After consideration, I decided I will not circle back with Ed. Ed clearly understands the questions, but Ed is a great example of the worst kind of political enemy our Second Amendment rights have in California. Ed doesn't really support gun owners, and in some ways is against them, but even in some areas where he agrees with gun owners, he won't help. So basically what I'm describing here is he's one of those guys who's all for gun ownership as long as it's him and his buddies. He's former law enforcement. So yeah, he and his buddies, he and his cop friends, sure, we should have guns. And, some of their other friends that they've worked with or whatever, or trained with, then they should have guns, but not the general public. The general public is not as equal as the rest of us. So I wanted to take a look. On each of these questions, the candidate actually has one of 4 responses. So I wanted to make our questionnaire so that it's a commitment. Not just a yes or no or whatever. So the 4 responses are, I support and will actively help support. So we ask them the question about whatever having to do with Second Amendment. And the first option to respond is, I support and will actively help to support. Second is, I support but will not help to support. The third is, I do not support but will not do anything to oppose. And the other one is, I do not support and will actively work to oppose. So here was one of the questions. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The individual right to keep and bear arms for defense, hunting, or sport is an important part of my political philosophy. That's the statement we made to Ed. Ed said, I support and will actively help to support the Second Amendment is in place to ensure the balance of our rights under the Constitution. So most Second Amendment supporters would see this as a positive and take this response as a good sign. However, even elected officials who vote for some of the most extreme anti-Second Amendment legislation will tell you that they support the Second Amendment and that the Second Amendment is important to them. So that's the first question we ask. Like, hey, do you like the Second Amendment? Do you not like the Second Amendment? And I got to tell you, people as high as Hillary Clinton will tell you, oh yeah, I support the Second Amendment, but obviously she does not. So we ask regarding concealed carry permits, and this was a different time back in 2019 when it comes to CCWs, but we asked, do you believe self-defense or personal protection is sufficient to meet the state's good cause requirement? Now, the good cause requirement is completely gone, but what we were asking him is, hey, do you have to write this stupid creative writing paragraph on trying to convince the government that you're good enough to exercise your Second Amendment right? Here's what he wrote. I do not support, but will not do anything to oppose. He does not support that, but he won't work against us. Promise, maybe he has his fingers crossed behind his back, or maybe not. Possession in our privately owned property is granted by the Constitution. There are some, however, who tend to pose risk to the general public by extension of this right to possession in the public arena. Reasonable safeguards, not infringing on the Second Amendment, are acceptable, but require close scrutiny. That's what he actually wrote. Now, he chose to actually write that. He chose to go into the notes and actually write and say, hey, look, you can't just give Second Amendment rights to any old person. I'm overly qualified to decide who does and doesn't get their rights. What do you guys? I'm going to open that up to Alicia and Sam and Michael. First off, right off the bat, what are your thoughts on that?
There's so much in there.
Just stick with the whole, like, hey, look, not everybody. We still got to scrutinize this thing. The government still needs to decide, who is or isn't okay. And gee, golly gosh. And, what are your thoughts on that part?
I'm wondering, did he have full grasp on the whole cause statement? Did he truly understand what you were asking? I honestly don't think that he had a full understanding of what you were even asking. I don't think he knew what he claimed to know.
Well, keep in mind that he's a police officer. He was working for the sheriff's department. He claimed that this was a major part of his platform. But the other thing is, he didn't hesitate. At no time did he say, hey, you know what? Let me make sure I understand what's going on here.
Right.
He just said, here's my opinion. Take it or leave it. So I'm not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in this situation, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to let Sam answer while I kind of read through this and sort my thoughts. Give me a moment.
Sam, what do you think?
Well, this is one of those issues that's so California specific that I really don't feel that I'm in a good position to make any value judgment here.
And keep in mind too that we're not talking about keeping. And of course, I went on to say, in fact, started to repeat myself. Ed chose not to stop at quote unquote scrutiny and made sure to heighten his requirement to close scrutiny. Keep in mind, this is not keeping a CCW out of the hands of criminals, the untrained, or the insane. Ed clearly states that he wants close scrutiny for sane, trained, law-abiding citizens who simply want to protect their self outside of the home. I wonder what other inalienable rights would Ed like to scrutinize before access is granted? Mm-hmm. Oh, Michael, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, someone that feels that, we need his permission to exercise this right, and having to go through these motions of, the good cause portion, which, like you said, that's gone now, right? We don't even have to deal with that now, but nevertheless, just for someone to be so arrogant to think that they would have to be able to be in such a position to make that determination, right? I'm not sure I can relate to that.
So the part of his statement that made me think he didn't truly understand the process is how he's correlating. You were asking about the cause statement. Mm-hmm. Where we have to essentially kind of prove or justify why we feel we should have it or why we needed it. Mm-hmm. And he's tying into that essentially a prohibited people. Those are two different things. One's not related to the other. That's why I was kind of questioning his understanding.
So let's go a little bit further in the article, because I think this is here, I'll just read it. There's an interesting second layer to Ed's answer.
Okay.
Ed has discussed this issue in the past with SDCGO staff. During the 2018 election, when Commander Dave Myers ran against Sheriff Gore, Ed sent us the following message about Myers' proposed CCW policy. Quote, he, or Myers, and this is somebody he opposed, by the way, so Ed did not like Myers, okay? He, Myers, also says he will personally review and approve all applications. I'm learning political speak, and this sounds like a loophole to deny based on mitigating factors. If self-defense is all that's needed, the records manager could stamp approved and deal done. I know Dave wants to be responsible, but that's just it. He will be personally responsible if he gets a quote-unquote bad feeling. Will he keep to his word or deny and risk the backlash? Mike, my personal belief is that he's said no criminal record or other disqualifier, then issue the permit. Let individual responsibility be the focus, not some ambiguous standard that many counties employ. So in Ed's statement 2 years prior to his questionnaire, Ed criticized someone who he opposed politically. This is someone who's like, hey, look, this guy, I don't like him, so I'm going to poke a hole in his process and procedure. Mm-hmm. So he opposed him politically by suggesting that his good cause policy could be abused by requiring close scrutiny. Ed's statement from just 2 years prior to that contradicts his questionnaire. Now that Ed's running for a position of power, rather than commenting on someone else's campaign, his view on power has changed. And then I went on to write, Ed, I am familiar with quote-unquote political speak too, and yours is hypocritical. He basically came through and said, through this email that I'm sure he didn't remember I kept 2 years prior, it was pretty clear that he absolutely understood the CCW process and what could and couldn't happen and what did and didn't go through the process of when you're getting a CCW. But when it was somebody he opposed, then gee, wait a minute. Why can't this guy just, stamp approved if they pass the background check and go through the training? But then when he's in power, all of a sudden it was, not everybody should have a CCW there, Mike, and we should probably weed out some of the, folks that we don't like, even if they do pass the background check and go through the roster. And that's really what I meant by this. These folks are more dangerous. If you have somebody, he's running as a Republican, he says, I love the Second Amendment. When you have somebody who's running as a Democrat, say, and they tend to not be as friendly as Republicans in general, but it's not true that all Democrats hate the Second Amendment, and, it's just not true. But if you have somebody who's running as a Democrat and they are clear, you know what, I want to get rid of assault weapons. I want to stop CCWs. I want to expand sensitive areas so that you can't carry. You know what to do with that person. You know where to categorize that person.
Well, clearly he's taken the temperature of the room and he's telling you what he thinks wants to be heard. He's not being honest and genuine himself.
And those are even worse than the people that are honest about being our enemy.
Right. They
get into a position of power and all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, what happened here? I thought this guy was on our side. He says he loves the Second Amendment. He goes on to talk about the roster, the California roster of handguns. He said we basically say we oppose it, the California roster of handguns, which of course we've since filed a lawsuit and are trying to get rid of. And he says he supports it. He doesn't like the roster, but he won't support us. He won't help us, was his answer. The handgun roster is a California de facto ban on normal popular pistols. And but if elected, Ed won't help. Ammunition registration is another one. Online purchase ban. So you now have to go through a background check when you're buying ammunition, and it pretty much has gotten rid of your ability to purchase online. And he says he supports the idea. Like, hey, it shouldn't be, but he won't support us. He won't support us. So this is somebody, we already have somebody that we've endorsed and that you've seen on our voter guide in the past. Her name's Christy Bruce Lane, and she's running for the 40th. And I got to tell you, I just don't see that there should be any kind of need to reevaluate anybody else running in that district when we have her running. I certainly don't think that we should even entertain the idea of Ed Musgrove. My fear is that he's going to stand up and say, hey, I'm for the Second Amendment, and I used to be a police officer, and everybody backs the blue, and gee golly gosh, I got a gun of my own, and you'll be duped into supporting somebody that won't support you and probably disagrees fundamentally with many of the Second Amendment beliefs that you and I share. So I'd caution and warn people that he's going to make a run of it. He's going to try to get the local Republican Party to support him. But please don't. Please don't. Any other thoughts, anybody, on any of that before we move on?
I'm thankful that you put this out here. Is this article something that listeners can go and find? Because I like being able to kind of read through this thing as a whole. I see it's on the website. How do they find it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to send this out in an email this week.
Okay. And I'm glad you put this out.
You can search it and look it up, but
okay.
I'll put it out and make it easy for people. You're going to hear a lot about this race over the next year and a half.
Are we going to see more answers to questionnaires for people in general? Because I kind of like this.
You like that?
Or do you have some kind of
I think it
promise to them that you won't?
No, well, there's sometimes there's kind of an understood, like, look, we need to be able to talk about this. What I don't do is if somebody gets a question wrong, or maybe they clearly don't understand the issue, I don't jump on their head immediately. Let's use this as a learning tool, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about let's see. let's talk about, where is it here? Okay, so I got an email from somebody, and I want to get your opinion on this. He emailed me, let's see, a quick tale of interest. I'll make it brief. Do I want to go through all this? Nah, heck, why not? In the Encinitas Solana Beach area, private planes from flying schools and clubs from Montgomery Field would fly 18 miles and train people in stated private planes, all making money while they placed people on the ground at risk, as on average, 1,000 private planes crash in the U.S. annually. That's what he says. I can't confirm it. To include, they use leaded fuel. I had had enough and took on the schools, clubs, and the FAA. They were ruining where we lived while they made money. The FAA wasn't making money, but they did nothing to stop it. That is another story. This also included private planes flying under 1,000 feet, which is against federal aviation law. I would call these schools and clubs, email the FAA, results or nothing. During a heated exchange over the phone to one club about altitudes and attitudes, I mentioned there are crazies out there with guns. We hung up. 5 minutes later, I called back and left a message to include my name and phone number and to state, quote, do you know what a .308 round will do to a small plane? I then hung up. I don't own a rifle. I've never owned a rifle, and that is why I used that reference to include putting the sentence in question form. I'm not violent and have never been arrested, nor do I break laws. 2 weeks later, I bet you all can guess what's about to happen. 2 weeks later, I was summoned to a parking lot by law enforcement claiming to want to discuss the airplane problem. I went, 7 cops, 3 plainclothes, and had put me in cuffs. Took him to jail. Went to his home without a warrant. Didn't need a warrant. And then he was taken to a mental health facility in Oceanside. He now has a 5150, Penal Code 5150, which means he's could potentially a danger to himself or others. And they took his guns. I'm not going to read the entire thing. The way this was written was can you believe they did that? You know, can you believe how anti-gun police in California and whatever are? But as I went through this, I got to tell you, I think that this is a warning for gun owners. Calling up and a thinly veiled threat, of gee golly gosh, I think this guy made a massive mistake, and did something extremely irresponsible by basically raising his voice, being aggressive, and then bringing the idea of these guns being shot down, into the picture. I think it was a huge mistake. This is not an example of law enforcement being out of line or California being anti-Second Amendment. I think that weighed into it. I'm not quite sure the reaction would have been the same in all 50 states, but I don't live in all 50 states. I live in California. And if you call somebody up and make these types of statements, I don't think you should be surprised if law enforcement shows up on your doorstep or wants to talk to you about it. What do you think? Am I overreacting? Did the law enforcement overreact, or are you guys in line with what I'm talking about here?
Oh, I agree.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you should see that coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually wrote back to him and basically explained, hey, man, I think you're wrong, and I think here are the mistakes you made, and I'm so sorry it's happening to you, but.
Right.
And he wrote back and was kind of understanding. But gosh, this is such a right. And we say it in the CCW classes, this is a right, but it's an enormous responsibility.
It is, and it's not without consequence if we are not appropriate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next one? You want to do a fun one?
Well, wait.
Go ahead. Fire it up, Sam. What do you got?
For another way to look at this, first of all, I absolutely agree with what you said, with what both of you said, that calling law enforcement and making vaguely threatening statements about shooting at small airplanes is not a recipe for success. Even if you don't own the exact caliber of firearm in question, and even though, because that is not an actionable threat, well, gosh, even that's arguable. Depends on the court, I guess. But yeah, that you try to think about it from the perspective of the people he called. Random guy calls you up on the phone. It was law enforcement he called, right?
He called a gun club, or I'm not a gun
Oh,
club. He called it an airplane club, like a
Oh, called okay. Oh, even
an
worse.
aviation club.
Called a flying club, and complained about their activity, their livelihood, their hobby, and made a
And I
vaguely
imagine they
threatening
would be.
statement involving. Say again.
I'm sorry. I was going to add to what you're stating. I'm sure they have permits or permissions in place for them to be able to be there to do what they're doing.
No indicator that the aviation club was doing anything illegal.
Right.
Right, and the FAA is extremely vigilant about that kind of thing.
Right.
So much as sneeze in the wrong direction, and they'll be on you like green on grass. But let's review the bidding. You're a flying club, and your members are exercising their hobby, and for some their livelihood, in a perfectly legal manner. And by the way, flying below 1,000 feet AGL is not illegal. It's only illegal over densely populated areas. Over not densely populated areas, it's 500 feet. So his complaint is unfounded to begin with.
So you can fly over the water. You can fly over the water at 500 feet, but if
Absolutely.
if you're flying over a neighborhood, you got to be at 1,000 feet.
Yes. Well, not neighborhood exactly, but the FARs are a little bit more specifically worded than that. But basically, suffice it to say, if you're not flying over a densely populated area, you can fly below 1,000 feet. So his complaint is unfounded, first of all. Second, picture yourself as the person picking up the phone at the flying club. People are practicing their hobby and for some their livelihood legally. And this Yahoo makes some vaguely threatening statements about shooting at small airplanes. What are you to do? Either go, oh, well, he's just some local yokel office rocker. Or would you call the police because that sounds like someone who is about to do something dangerous, or at least has the mindset of doing something dangerous? I mean, this is the kind of thing you can imagine reading about in a news article about someone who actually did go do something violent like that, and go, gosh, why didn't the police, at least give this guy a talking to? This is a clear sign. So, yeah, owning firearms is a right and it's a responsibility. Don't go around making threatening statements, even if you think they're just below the line necessary to get you arrested and thrown in prison. You have to be a little more careful than that.
Yeah, I think there's this other thing going on where we all know we're good guys. We walk around going, hey, we're productive members of society. We pay our taxes. We don't want to hurt anybody. But nobody else knows that about you. And I think we just kind of assume that through osmosis or whatever, that the cops should just look at you and know that, oh, well, this guy's sane and productive and law-abiding. They don't know that. They don't know that the message you left or the threats that you made or whatever were made by somebody who's not dangerous. You're showing them signs that you are in fact dangerous, and they, now they got to investigate. They got to go look and see, well, what kind of person is this? I mean, and how much do they even want to spend on that? How many people out there can honestly say that they've called up some kind of club or somebody that they disagree with and said, do you have any idea what a 308 bullet could do to you? That's not normal activity. So now you're somebody who's saying, hey, look, I'm harmless and I'm law abiding and I'm not going to hurt anybody. Okay, well, you're also not thinking clearly,
I think this is what somebody John would say is not sane, sober, moral, prudent.
Certainly not prudent, right?
Yeah.
But I think we all have this idea that, hey, and I'll tell you how I learned this. Years ago, and I've told this story before. There were a bunch of people in like a neighborhood pool. We had like a community pool at like 1 a.m. and I said, "Hey, you guys got to leave. It's 1 a.m." Long story short is I got attacked and they got pepper sprayed, and I'm sitting there going, "Hey, I'm the victim, right? I'm a hero, you know." And cops showed up. I was actually on the phone with 911 when they actually physically assaulted me and I pepper sprayed them. And I stayed on the phone with 911, and the operator said, "Hey, cops are right around the corner. Go talk to them." And as I walked up to the police officers, you know, I'm imagining there's going to be like a red carpet, and they're going to be, "There he is, our hero." And those cops are going to put me up on their shoulders and march me around the neighborhood. Nope, I got checked out. They had no idea who I was or what I'd done. They don't know my history. They don't know if I'm a good guy. They don't know if, you know, they have no idea. All they know is they have a bunch of different stories. They have a 911 call, you know, and I really, truly realized, hey, you know what? They didn't immediately look at me and identify me as a good guy. I'm a part of their investigation right now. So I think there's a piece of that with all of us where we know, or at least we think, and we're under the impression that, hey, we're good people. Everyone knows that about me. Everybody, I'm the good guy, you know, or whatever. And you got to understand that that's just not the reality. They don't walk around knowing automatically that you're a good guy. And I got to tell you, I don't want cops walking around and making snap judgments. Oh, well, that's a good guy and that's a bad guy. I want them to investigate and do a thorough thing. So anyway, I thought that was a good real world lesson. That was an actual, I don't think he was a member. Throw that out there. I don't think he was actually a member, but he found San Diego County gun owners, and he wrote this email. And like I said, I didn't read the whole thing, but the tone of the email was kind of, like I was supposed to be on his side on this thing. And I read it and was not on his side, but I wrote a very professionally worded and calm email and said, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that I think you really truly made some mistakes here, that I wish you luck in your future. But this is not a case of someone abusing power. It's a case of somebody acting irresponsibly. Now, and there's probably a discussion to be had on whether or not the punishment fit the crime. But, I truly don't blame the aviation club for calling law enforcement and saying, hey, there's a guy talking about guns and using them on planes. So I truly don't blame him for that. But anyway. All right, I think that's the show. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I truly appreciate you sponsoring the show and Cargo being a part of Gun Owners Radio. And I'm looking forward to all our listeners going down and becoming customers.
Really quick before we go, though, I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Does Sam have any blog posts coming up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You do.
Yeah.
Sam, you got a blog post that you just put up, didn't you?
Yes, I have a blog post that went up this past week. Seeing as Gun Store Bingo version 1 and version 2 were received so well, and SHOT Show starts, tomorrow actually, I figured I would do SHOT Show Bingo.
I'm looking at the card right now. It's pretty great.
SHOT Show Bingo.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's the premise. A lot of people who, those of us who don't go to SHOT Show still follow the media coverage. There's always a flurry of new product announcements, and there are some things that are kind of funny that seem to happen a lot of the time at SHOT Show, and there are a lot of things that are a little bit frustrating about the product announcements at SHOT Show, and it's its own. It's an institution, all right. So the idea with SHOT Show Bingo is
there something up there about people getting sick? Because God, every year people get horribly... No? Okay, all right.
That should be the free space. Make that your free space.
Well, and technically it doesn't happen at SHOT Show. It's the following week everybody comes down with this dreaded, horrible disease that they... Like, SHOT Show is like the world's biggest petri dish for some reason. You people wash your hands when you go to SHOT Show, for God's sake.
Well, wash your hands everywhere, especially at SHOT Show.
All right, what's your favorite? Alicia, what's your favorite on his bingo card there?
Clueless marketing rep.
Clueless marketing rep. Talk about that one, Sam.
Well, one of the great things about modern technology and the fact that you can watch videos on the internet for free is that you get to see people being really, really dumb with cameras pointed at them. And sometimes it's sad, but if that person's paid to be good in front of a camera and they're not, it's funny. So you'll hear marketing reps talk to these interviewers who know a heck of a lot more about guns than they do and who can shoot a heck of a lot better than they can, and try to blow smoke up their rear ends about how, this short-barreled shotgun with no stock is perfect for hunting or whatever. Like that's not a real example. It's just made up. But you hear some of the dumbest, most boneheaded things from people who are paid to represent a product in front of an audience of interviewers and of all of us vicariously sitting at home watching videos or reading press releases or whatever. And it always happens. The industry doesn't learn. They keep putting dumb people in front of cameras, and because they don't want to put their engineers in front of cameras who actually know the product, because they're afraid that they're not, I don't know, photogenic or whatever. I don't know. I don't get it.
All right. Well, look for that. Go to sdcgo.org/blog and check it out. Should be hilarious. You did do a really good job with the gun shop bingo, so I'm looking forward to this one. Michael, you ever been to a SHOT Show?
I have.
Yeah. Do you go regularly or?
No, we attended a good number of years ago, and through some of our suppliers.
Yeah.
Just to get in the door, because not everybody gets to go, right?
Yeah.
But we were just kind of scoping it out to see if it was something we wanted to attend, and at some point, there's I think they had a pretty good waiting list for a while as well, and I'm not sure if that's still active. We haven't really pursued it, but it was certainly a fun show.
Yeah, I've never been. Yeah. I've never been to SHOT Show. I get highly criticized for that.
Yeah.
Although I got to tell you, what
kind of gun guy are you?
I know I get highly criticized.
I know.
Yeah.
I went a few days early. FPC had a big party, and that was cool. They took over a bar, and that was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed that, but I didn't actually go to SHOT Show. But I did just put on my calendar today. In September is Gun Rights Policy Conference. And I think I just went to my first. It was here in San Diego a couple months ago, and I think I'm going to start going to that. I don't think SHOT Show is. I think SHOT Show is for gun dorks, and GRPC is for gun nerds. And I think I'm a gun nerd.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think I like the SHOT Show is for the. Well, actually, it's not 308 caliber. It's technically. I'm not a big equipment, nerd. I'm more of a or dork. I'm not an equipment dork. I'm more of a in the conference at Gun Rights Policy Conference, they have guest speakers and they talk about lawsuits and tactics and policy and stuff like that. And I think I'm that nerd. I'm that Second Amendment nerd. I'm far more nerdy than I am dorky. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway. Okay, that's the show. Thank you guys all so much for listening. All gun dorks and nerds. Appreciate you guys listening. And thank you for supporting the show. Alicia, awesome job as always.
Thank you.
Our producer, Rich, did a great job. And Michael from Cargo, awesome. Thank you for joining us. And thank you so much for the support. Please support Michael. And, of course, Sam the Gunman. Stump, my nephew, great job. And Dustin earlier from from Red
That's
White.
gonna be his new offshoot company.
From Red Ass, Badass, White Ass Brew. From Red, White, and Badass Brew. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for telling your story. It was really, really amazing. See you guys next week. Check us out on YouTube, and we'll talk to you guys soon.